Welcome to Speak from the Body, a podcast that seeks to explore the wealth of wisdom of the body. My name is Avni Trivedi, and I'm your host, as well as an osteopath, doula, and movement teacher. In this podcast, I speak to experts about all sorts of topics to do with the body, such as touch, trauma, body confidence, gratitude, birth, movement, relaxation, and baby development. My wish is that you learn how to connect with, listen to, and respect your body. Donna Noble is a yoga teacher, wellness intuitive coach, body positive and social justice advocate, and is also the founder of Curvesomeyoga. Her mission is to evolve the image of yoga to make it more diverse and inclusive. She creates safe, judgment-free spaces where everybody will feel welcome to enjoy the transformational benefits of yoga, regardless of their shape, size, gender, ethnicity, or ability. Donna has written for and featured in countless digital and print publications. I'd like to welcome Donna to the podcast. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Avani. How are you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. I wanted to start by asking what you thought of the body positivity movement. Like, was it something you were aware of a few years ago, or is it something that has taken time to come to your attention?
I suppose it's taken time to come to my attention because the reason why I became body positive is I read an article, I think it was back in 2015, and it was a curvy journalist who wrote about the experience of yoga. And because they were the largest person in the room, they were either stared at by other practitioners or ignored by the yoga teachers. And I didn't realize at the time how much the story had an impact on me. And it wasn't until I think a few months later, and I kept talking about it. My friends were like, "Well, shut up or do something about it." And I realized how much it stayed with me, because what she experienced to me wasn't yoga. Yoga's about union, not only with yourself but with others, and she wasn't getting that experience. And so that's how Curvesomeyoga kind of came about, because I had a coach at the time, and I told her that, and I said, "What can I do about it?" She said, find a name. And I thought I need a name that people will know that my yoga is going to be something different. And so I like wholesome yoga, and I thought, but wholesome yoga sounds like a bread, I can't utilize that. And I thought at the time that I like the word curvy, and I thought I'd search for every permutation of the word curvy, but I hadn't, because there's names that come out subsequently. But I thought everything had gone. But I like curve and then some, so I put the two together, and Curvesomeyoga came about. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, and but there were people out there like Diane Bondi, Jessamine Stanley in America that were doing body positive yoga, and then that's how my knowledge of it expanded and grew. And it was like, well, we need something like that here. So it wasn't a conscious thing, but it was like I could see them sharing their yoga practice. For, oh my God, everyone really can do yoga. But that wasn't the imagery that I was seeing here. It was a standard image of a yoga, and I thought we need to change that. I didn't know what I was doing, but I went out there and I went when I thought my audience would be, and I utilized bloggers as well, because representation matters. And if you don't see someone looking like you, why are you going to do it? And that's how it grew from there. And the body positive movement, I believe, is such a wonderful thing, because it's about inclusion, it's about diversity. It's changed somewhat because there's been different iterations of it, but when the 1960s was the second iteration, it was created by Black femmes to create a space for them when they didn't feel included. So they were it was about social justice. So they were fighting for equality of housing, school, education, and that's what it came out, because they didn't think they didn't think they belonged. But it's now the third iteration, which everyone now knows about. It's changed, and it no longer represents the group that created it.
And when you first got into yoga, was it more of a physical practice for you, or did you always understand that unity?
No, I didn't. The way in which I got into it, a friend of mine saw a picture of Madonna in the newspaper, and she was very much into what celebrities, quote unquote, were into. And she said, "Let's give it a go." And I said, "Fine." So we ordered the yoga mats. I had no knowledge of yoga whatsoever at that point. And 'cause I was working in a corporate environment, so yoga didn't feature with anyone or the people that I was interacting with. So we gave it a go, and I was very lucky because we had a colleague that was training to be a yoga teacher, so we became her guinea pig. So I was able to just go down to the boardroom over lunchtime and experience yoga. And my journey was very inclusive to begin with, because my first teacher was South Asian. My subsequent teacher was then mixed heritage. And then there were two yoga teachers, Jennifer, I can't remember the other person's name, and they had a yoga studio in Southwest London. So I had a very diverse introduction to yoga, which I didn't realize at the time was very, very unusual. But as my journey's progressed, it's become less diverse, which is quite funny. So yeah, so initially it wasn't even about physical. It was just my friends said, give it a go and try. And we didn't. I liked the way it made me feel. And it was after I became ill that I saw that there was much more to yoga, because I was working in a very stressful environment. And yoga was one of the things that transitioned me from my stressful job into what I'm doing now, because I never imagine being a yoga teacher. It's something I didn't plan. And but I liked the way it made me feel, and it allowed me to relax. It allowed me to change my mindset. And as I developed, I got more and more to see that there was so much more. So my beginnings were, I suppose, like other people, it was going into it maybe without any knowledge of it, that I got so much more from it. It changed my life in ways I can't imagine. And I love it so much more than I did my corporate role.
I know a lot of people who've become yoga teachers that have done something else as their kind of former life. And the same with osteopaths and practitioners, actually. So that's quite a common journey. But did you ever, let me just phrase my question. I'm just thinking, not everyone has that idea of their work also being their passion or their purpose. For a lot of people, it's like your work is somewhere that you go and earn the money to pay your bills.
Yeah.
But they can be quite separate. Did you enjoy your corporate job, or did it feel like your kind of identity?
No, I think when I did my corporate job, I was one of these individuals that I flew by the seat of my pants. I never took any job seriously. I wasn't career minded, but I fell into roles very organically. And if I didn't like a job, I would leave. And then after a while, it's like, you've got to take it seriously, Don. You've got to take it seriously. And I thought, okay, fine. And so when I started out as I was an IT engineer. So I started out as a PA, then I became an IT engineer. And a PA, the reason why I became a PA was I didn't know which industry I wanted to get into. So I thought it's a back door. And it worked very much like that for me. But after a while, I saw I can't earn a lot of money doing this anymore. And I like computers. So I was very lucky that I worked for a company and they were looking for someone to go into IT. And I don't think they thought there's anyone internally that they could advertise and recruit. But I surprised them. And I remember, I think 3 or 4 days within the job, because I was so enthusiastic that they gave me the opportunity to do the job. And I was actually doing a course. I was doing an HND course as well to help me get a role subsequently. But I was able to get this role in the meantime. And I remember my manager said, he goes, oh my God, because I think everyone was off sick. So I had to actually get on the phones and respond to calls. And he went, oh my God, Donna, you're actually resolving calls. I thought, what do you expect me to do? I'm here shadowing individuals. I've learned this stuff. So I've always been a very quick learner. So he was quite shocked. So for a while, computing I did like, but what I think I didn't like, so I had a master's. So everyone, you need to go into management. You need to go into management. And I think the moment I did that, I didn't like it anymore, because it was a lot more responsibility, and I encountered discrimination, and in a very male-dominated environment. So being a woman and a Black woman, that's when things started to come through. And I think that's when I started to encounter stress, and I became ill, and that's why I didn't like it anymore. And I was told to leave so many times by my friends, like, Don, you don't like the job. And I saw that all the things society told me that was going to make me happy didn't. So I had the house, the car, the job, all those things, and I still wasn't happy. And the reason why I actually changed my role, it wasn't a conscious thing. A friend of mine said, Donna, you need to have a plan B. And I thought, how do you mean have a plan B? I'm doing what society told me to do. This is my path. There's nothing else to do, type thing. And at the time I discovered yoga, so I was liking yoga, and I thought, you know what, when I was in IT, I always studied for qualifications. I was always like, you know what I might as well do then is study for a course that I can become certified. and that eventually, if I want to become a yoga teacher when I retire, then I've got this certification. So it was, you can see that it was not even part of my career plan. It was like, if when I retire, maybe I do. Because my family, they retired and they're watching TV, and I thought, I'm too active. I can't imagine doing that. So I need something. So I did my course, and if you know me, I do things very quickly. So I actually studied. It was a 18-month to 2-year course, which showed you that it was something that I would do in the future. It wasn't like something I wanted to do here and now. So I did that, and I could only afford 1 weekend per month. So that's why I did the course like that. And along the way, still didn't even think about yoga. And I think our company had 3 rounds of redundancy, and I've survived 2. And the last one is like, we had to go into a room, and they had the old org chart. My job was there. They knew what my job wasn't there anymore. And I was very calm. And when I was, everyone's still, you're not up there, people crying. I was like, I started to maybe go with the flow, just stay in the moment, become more mindful. And I remember I was doing a master NLP practitioner course, and they were trying to get me, before I did the course, to apply for jobs I knew I wouldn't get, because all my colleagues had to apply for jobs, and I knew they'd get their job back. So I would never get any of those jobs. I didn't have the qualification to be a product manager, for instance, which is something I thought I'd maybe like to do. And when I went on this course, I remember the trainer said, "Donna, what's going on with this?" I don't know. I just don't know. I've got to apply for these jobs. I want to get them. She goes, "You do know what you want to do?" I said, "No, I don't." She said, "Yes, you do." She said, "Donna, when you talk about yoga, you light up. You talk about corporate, you don't." And that one instance, it's like, okay, yeah, it was decided. I said, what I can do, because I loved hot yoga. So I thought I'd finish the current course. And what I'll do is go to LA and do the 9-week hot yoga course, because it was the hot yoga certificate at the time. So I knew I'd get a job, because there were so many studios around London. So I thought, I can't go that September, because the redundancy wasn't until a few weeks in, so I couldn't go. I'd missed the deadline. So I'd go the following April. And I did, and I was supposed to be in America only for 9 weeks. I stayed for 6 months, and all my friends said, "Donna, when you got on that plane, the old Donna started to come back through." And that was back in 2012, and I'm still doing what I do now. So by me trusting the universe, trusting the process of life, I've organically found something that was meant to be a hobby, because I knew with my job, it was for a top 5 law firm, that even if I was out of that environment for 6 months, I'd get a job back, because the name on my CV, they still get people ringing me up now, if after all these years, would still get me a job in that environment. But fortunately, I didn't have to. And from being a yoga teacher to what I'm doing now, it showed me that I very much, as they identified that NLP master practitioner course, that I love getting lit up, and that's what I've been doing. And the job with my role has changed, but I do love it. I can't imagine myself doing anything more now.
What is it about teaching yoga that you love?
I love the community that is created, and I love when people come to me, especially individuals that don't normally do yoga, and they come with all these limiting beliefs, and I'm able to show them otherwise, and that's why I love it. I love sharing the gift and the transformation that yoga had for me with them as well. So it's almost like I allowed them to realize their true potential in terms of their body, in terms of their mindset. And I love teaching them, my students, skills on their yoga mat that they can take in their everyday life as well. But it just, I can go into a class, I could be drained, and they can energize me. It's the sharing of so much more. That's what I love. And they accept me for who I am, and I accept them for who they are. It's when we go deep and we connect at a level that I couldn't connect in a corporate role with. Yoga gives me so much more. It lights me up. When I see someone, trust me and then trust their body, that's what makes me happy. So it's the sharing, it's the giving. It makes me happy. It's a job where I can be of service, and being of service is what I very much like. Even I didn't know that at the time, but I think that's changed over time. But it's so much, and I suppose for me, changed so much because it's more than yoga. We connect at such a deep level, and yoga has allowed me to come home to who I am. It's allowed me to see and identify what I didn't like, and allowed me to heal from the illness that I had as well.
You mentioned that when you were first going to class, that it was always an inclusive space. What makes it a space where everyone belongs? Because, like, for me, it's only now that these conversations about body positivity have started to come about that I've started to realize, oh yeah, there are lots of spaces where I didn't feel that welcome, or didn't feel a sense of home.
Yeah. I suppose the body positivity also maybe started to come into my unconscious when I was in America, because at some of the studios I taught, especially Texas, diversity was there. You know, I could see that was the community. It was a really real community-based studio. So I think it started to come through. When I came back to London, that's when I began to see there's certain people not in this space. But where are the curvy women? Where are the women of colour? Where are people with disabilities? And I began to look around and thought, oh my God, why are these individuals not in this space? Yoga is for everybody. And when I saw what Jessamine Stanley and Dana Fossetti could do with their bodies, I could see that you couldn't tell a yogi by their size or how they looked. So I began to challenge that. And I thought, but why are individuals not coming into spaces? So what I endeavored to do, or did then, was create a space that was safe and judgment free. So I looked at what teachers were how teachers were teaching. I thought, you know, even I've been body shamed in classes because I'm tall, and you know, oh, get your legs wider. I'm not Barbie. I can't snap my legs out of my hips joint and widen them. And so I began to see. So I taught in a way that giving students agency over their body to do, if they want to come on their mat and come onto the mat rather and lie in Savasana the entire class, that's to yoga. So I went about showing the different aspects of yoga. The face of yoga has become very much the asanas, the postures, and that's not what it is. So that's what I didn't know what I was doing. So when I was going out there, I saw that teaching the classes wouldn't attract people that wouldn't think about doing yoga, because they're going to think, why are you showing me yoga? There's no one else looking like me doing yoga. So what's different? So what I did, I used to do presentations actually and show individuals that looked like society doing yoga, and then you can see, oh, if that person can do it, then maybe I can do it. And that's how it very much started to change, that it became more inclusive. But if you go back to way back when, there's diversity, but it's changed, it's become very much embraced by the West.
And one really important aspect of body positivity is looking at class as well, which doesn't, I mean, that's the kind of uncomfortable truth of just how expensive it can be to attend certain centres and workshops and teacher trainings and all of that. So how has that factored in? Because obviously you deserve to be well paid for the work that you do and that you're doing in service.
Yeah.
But sometimes people are excluded because of financial aspects.
But we can you can give free classes, which I do. So I do content. So I allow my content to be available for those that can't maybe afford it. And also what I do as well is there's one thing I do, like a 30-day challenge. So it's like half an hour of yoga every day for 30 days, and I'll make it like £30. So it's only £1 a day. So I try to make it as accessible as possible. But also I will go onto platforms and teach free classes there as well. So I'll work with, brands who are able to pay me so that I can give my service to those that can't afford it. And also what I'll do is I'll work with, which I've started to do with some teachers that have courses, and they'll offer scholarships now, or we have pay it forward, where someone else that can afford will pay it forward for someone else that can't afford. So there's all those different ways in which to do it, or working with brands. Like I've got a lot of friends now working with Lululemon, and they've got something called Hair to Be, where they'll provide funding. So there's free classes for the community. And sometimes I'll actually go to like one of the Lululemon stores and actually offer classes there for the local community to offer my time for free as well.
Have you ever felt the sense of tokenism when companies try to show like a photo of a Black woman doing yoga? Where, because I've been asked to be an image for lots of different things, where I don't feel it always trickles down to actually doing anything that different apart from photography.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, tokenism is very, very much a thing and very much out there. But before I agree to do anything now, I'll look at that person's feed to see if it's something that they've been doing a long time, or it's something they're doing not to be called out. And if it's obvious to me that they're doing something not to be called out, I won't do that anymore. Because, performative allyship, and I've seen a lot of that since last year when the Black Lives Matter happened. I won't do it very much now in that respect, because even this month it's Black History Month in America, and a lot of brands are coming to me and say, can you do this free? And it's like, well, no, I don't think so. If the person coming to me to ask to do something, if they're getting paid, then I should be getting paid. And because I come from a corporate background, I don't have so much of that qualm anymore, because I have to eat. Or if someone's coming to me about exposure, I can't go to my bank manager and say, I've got so much exposure this month, can I pay my mortgage bill with this? No. So it's taken a long time to get there. No. So I've started to actually call brands out now, because I've got a voice now. I don't always speak publicly, but I'll call them out, because there may be a teacher that doesn't have the voice that I do, or the courage, or being able to do it. So I call them out, so they hopefully won't do it to somebody else. But you can send when it's that, and I try not to. I avoid that very much now, and it's taken a long time to do that, because I've had to. I suppose I've assimilated a long time, and that assimilation's now gone. So now, because of what's happening, I'm trying to be a good ancestor, and I won't do it anymore. And it's wrong to do so, because all they're trying to do is not be called out, because I think now there's a lot of more accountability being required for the studios or the brands, and they think it's the quick plaster. Let me have and what annoys me, have a model, and sometimes you see, is that the one stock image they've got? You see the same person. It's like, my God, there's so many teachers there, and sometimes it's like, oh, but we can't find good teachers of color, and it's like, where are you? Because there are, and we're becoming more visible, so it's no longer a good enough excuse for them to say that. There's no need to do that, and I won't do it. And I've had friends where they've been asked to go and work for a studio, especially in light of going online, and they suggested, why don't you do like a class, this type of class? And they've had no further contact, but the class they suggested is on the studio schedule by someone that's not a person of color. So you get again to see, and they've called them out, and they've not responded to the person asking what's happened here. As far as I was concerned, that I was going to come and actually teach at your studio. So somewhat performative. Last year we saw, was it a lot of the black squares, and a lot now it's BAU again. It's almost like, it's a bit like the Me Too campaign, where it's tumbleweed almost in that respect. But I'm trying to make sure it's not that way at all.
Yeah, and it's long-term change that you're talking about, rather than just putting a plaster on it.
Exactly, and that's what I try and do. And I've it's, I suppose, through all this, because I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time, it's organically gone into, I'm doing more anti-racism work, and I'm working with some studios, not only in the UK but in the US as well, where they are trying to bring about change, and they are willing to learn, because everyone's got privilege, and we're not saying that having privilege is wrong. It's what you can do with your privilege to help those that don't have the privilege, and that's what I'm educating people about. So I use my platform now, especially Donna Noble Yoga, to educate more than anything else.
What do you see as similarities or differences in the awareness in the States and here in the UK in kind of progress with inclusivity and conversations about race?
I think in the States, they're a lot more vocal, I think, about it, because a lot of the things that happen with Black Lives Matter happen there, and the UK are a little bit behind, I'm finding, in that respect. But there is more of us here, and because I think we're all online now, those lines are being blurred. And what I find that's helping is a lot of the US companies are sharing my voice. They actually reach out to me and say, can we amplify your voice so that you have a platform to share? So that's happening more. And you're finding a lot more individuals now are highlighting teachers of color. And in the States, they're more vocal. They'll say, pay a person of color. They're a lot more to say. There's been issues going on for hundreds of years. So it's time now that it was addressed in that respect. And I found that more US companies may have been doing diversity and inclusion a lot more than the UK companies are doing so. And I think the UK, it's almost like sometimes the issue is not so bad here. So it's that they're using that kind of blanket statement to maybe think, I don't need to address this because it's not as endemic here as it is. It's not as bad as the States or the US type thing. That's what I hear a lot of in that respect. And people are trying to hide behind that.
Especially because in the UK, yoga has always been linked to a liberal kind of middle class mentality. Yeah. So there's often that, well, I'm not racist because I subscribe to that way of thinking, but actually so many of the microaggressions come from.
They do, yeah. One of the ones you hear all the time, I don't see color. And it's like, okay, so if you don't see color, you're not acknowledging my lived experience. You're not noticing or acknowledging the fact that I can walk into a shop and I get judged by the color of my skin, or the fact that I go into a yoga studio, I'm the only person of color. I'm the one holding space. And I've had people walk out of the class because of the color of my skin, or someone complain because I've said something, they didn't like the way I said it, because, and I have a colleague, that will say the exact same thing and there's no issue. And that's the thing, and or love and peace or spiritual bypassing, which is a lot of the things that happen. And, it's like, be aware of the privilege and how you can use it. That's all we're asking for. And I don't want anyone to give me a job because of the color of my skin. I'd love to earn my role or my place or my schedule because of what I bring, my teaching style and the qualifications and my ability more than anything else.
And you were talking about yoga potentially being something that you would retire and teach. And one big aspect is an age aspect, and that version of a young white size 8 skinny girl.
Yeah.
Do you see a change now in older people being celebrated too and being seen doing yoga?
Definitely. Yeah, those of us in the body positive movement, I think we're advocating that. If you look at my Curvesomeyoga page, you'll see I'll show every discipline, every age, every size, every ability on there to change that narrative. And I'm seeing more and more of maybe it's the people I follow, because I follow certain accounts, but there are a lot more platforms. Even today, I think there's a photographer, and I must share it today, and he's shown, I think it's a yogi, and she's in their 70s, very mature. And I think, it's trickling down to share and embrace all bodies. That, you can't tell, there's one thing I like about the hot yoga, whether you're 8 or 80, it's never too late to start. And we're showing that more and more people are, and that's what I love about some aspect of Instagram, is that it allows us to share our practice, and people of all ages and sizes or whatever are starting to share their practice, to show that there is more than the standard, yoga body, so to speak, the tall, slim person with the leg behind their head in Bali, type thing. Always in Bali, I know, in Bali.
The bikini in Bali, yeah.
Exactly, and so there's a lot more than that. So it's nice. But I still have to have arguments with individuals, though, to say, because everyone says, oh, but everyone is a yoga body. But it's like, where are you showing this? You're not showing that. So how can we still appeal to those that are invisible to come forward? And more are. But even like I was on Clubhouse, I've addicted that new social platform, but there was a gentleman on there, and he said, I'm a large black man, can I do yoga? And I still get those questions even now, and it's, of course you can. Or I've got women that, I'm not flexible, or I'm not young enough, because of this image that they see, that they think they have to be someone or something to start yoga, and they don't realize that it's not that way at all. So we still got some way to go to change that. And that's why I believe that representation really does matter. And that's why I share as many images on my Curvesome platform of everyone doing yoga, and I'm so lucky that I have people that will allow me to share their practice on my platform, to convince, even if it's just one person to come on the yoga mat, then I'm happy that my job is done. And I've also seen where representation does matter. I remember it was even me as a black woman, I'm just Donna, I used to say. And it wasn't till I went to I think it was the Yoga show. They had the International Yoga Day, and it was during June. And typical English weather, it was rainy and there was no summer. And I think the one day we went, it was sunny. And at 3 o'clock, the rain started to come. I was being interviewed, and I had to hang around till 5 o'clock. So I was teaching the class. I thought, if the students are like me, I'd go home. I'm not going to hang around till the 5 o'clock class. I'd go home. And I was so amazed to see that there were so many people of color that turned up for the class. And they said, Donna, we came to support you. And then in that moment, I realized that me as a black woman had to be more visible, that I couldn't hide like I was semi-hiding. Even when I was doing curvy yoga, people, you can't teach the curvy individuals, you're not curvy. And it's like, it wasn't until somebody said, well, you know, you don't have to be gay to advocate gay rights. And I thought, okay, I can back that excuse away. But after that seeing that and hearing what they said, I had to become more visible. I still hide away sometimes, but I have to. But I use my voice to be more visible, and because of that, there's so many people now that said, Donna, thank you. You were one of the first to be doing this, and I'm so glad I found teachers that look like me, because you know, everyone thinks that everyone will come to a yoga space, but there are differences and there are experiences that people have. Like you said, that you went to a yoga show, didn't feel comfortable. And that's what someone that looks like you as a teacher can help to alleviate that, so that when you come to a class or go to a class, something's not going to be said to trigger you or to be traumatic or take you out of your practice, because you understand that. Because people with language is very important. I've learned that so much. I'm writing this book. Language is key. You know, we say the word just a lot. I say it a lot. I'm trying to get rid of it, but it's very ableist. Just put your right arm up. What if someone can't do that? You know, and women say just a lot. We try to soften, just do this, or you know. But in yoga, we say a lot. And I go to classes. I stop telling teachers when you ask them their opinion. What can you tell me something? I say, you say just a lot, because they become very focused on it, and I do as well. It takes my yoga practice now, because they realize what they're saying. But we need to be aware of what we're saying in the class. We can't go as teachers and say anything. We need to be more aware, so that we can be as inviting for everyone that comes in the room, that no one's going to be afraid that something is said that's going to trigger them. So we need to be aware of that if we're trying to create an environment that's accessible to all.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I think it was so subtle that I wasn't even conscious of not feeling welcome. And so it's when these conversations are happening of like, oh yeah, these are the times when that's happened. And the difference that also someone who is very inclusive in their way, like
Yeah.
I've been to Bikram yoga with my husband, who's a big guy, and some teachers have really gone out of their way to make him feel comfortable and included and encouraged and everything, and not make him feel like he's kind of sticking out.
Exactly, because I teach Bikram as well. So yeah, and I think Bikram is one of those classes where it doesn't matter, because you're doing the same postures and you'll do it in the same way. But I read recently, I think someone tagged me as one of the teachers that make my class accessible, and they were saying that they went to a class, and I think there were 3 curvy bodies in the room, and they thought, oh, they were putting the most experienced teachers at the students at the front, and then they went at the back. And she said that there was one of the curved individuals was the teacher at the back. But the teacher acknowledged that, and apparently he had more knowledge than the teacher. But because of the way he looked, they were put to the back of the class, and that's not right at all. That's not right at all. I will have a class, and I will change perception, because I have students that come to my class, and they don't realize how flexible they are. Some will come and do the Bikram back bend, and they go so deep into the back bend without even realizing, without any effort. So when I have a chance to maybe to get someone to demonstrate, with their permission, I'll ask them to demonstrate, because it's going to change perception. So number 1, they'll feel good because they've been seen. Number 2, they'll change the perception of the other practitioners in the class. So I'll do that. It's not, I don't always go for the most advanced student. I don't like that term, advanced, but the most experienced student in the class to demonstrate postures. I will get everyone to demonstrate in their own way, shape, or form. And I also say to students in the beginning when they come to my class, it doesn't matter how the posture looks, it's how it makes you feel. So you allow them to relax, and that's how they will enjoy, and they'll trust their body more, because it takes away that competition of trying to look like a person. Because as teachers, students try to please us. I'll use blocks in my classes. I'll have them there because students come in, they'll use the block, and blocks or props can make your practice more challenging, but also make it more accessible. But we need to normalize these tools to give a level playing field for everyone that comes into the yoga space.
I'm curious about your experiences of teaching online with COVID. Is that making a difference for people being able to feel included that wouldn't necessarily in a studio?
Yeah, definitely. For me, there's a lot of students that wanted to come and practice with me but weren't able to because of location. So a lot more come. And I think not in my class, I don't know what it is, but none of my students actually have their cameras off. Actually, I have a lot of my friends say, but I encourage them to say, I can't correct you, or modify you if I can't see you. But they come and they can see themselves, and so it's not an issue, and they're in the safety of their own home, so they don't have that issue of, you know, the image of yoga is this, and they don't have to maybe walk through a yoga studio where it's very, you know, not very diverse, and being in changing rooms again where it's not diverse, because that walk from the front door to the yoga mat can be very, very long, you know. And if you're doing it on your own, I've seen it before, where students have paid money to come to my classes, but they've got so anxious because they have this image in their mind of what the class is going to be, and no matter what I say to them to convince them, they won't come, because again, it's about imagery. You know, us as teachers, we need to look at what we're putting out there on social media. You know, why aren't we showing sitting in, you know, a cross-legged position? Why aren't we showing us in asanas, in savasana? Why is it the complicated postures? Why can't we show mountain pose, so someone can look and say, you know what, I could do that posture? Then they'll come to the yoga space. But when they're seeing something, we've got our legs behind our head in a pretzel type pose, they're not going to come. And that's what we need to do. And that's why you see me, you know, I'll do both, but I'll show predominantly the postures as well that are accessible, because that's what we're trying to do. Yoga is for everybody. And if you're putting, and it seems to be the in word now, you see hashtag and you look at the feed, where is your class for everybody? You know, people see even beginners classes, they won't go because the experience they have is not a beginners type class, you know, and they won't go back. They won't go back. I remember I was teaching another class, and I think it was floor bow, where you lie on your stomach and you have your legs behind you up in the air and you try and grab. And she was there, her legs up in the air and nothing being done with her hands. And I gave her a belt and allowed her to grab the foot. And she came back after class with, my God, I've done 130 plus classes. You're the first teacher to actually tell me or help me get into posture. And she said she went to a local teacher after class and said, is it me? And the teacher said yes, that it was her body that was causing the problem. I couldn't believe it. I was incredulous. And she said, there's all these other postures now, I'm going to go away and try. And I was just so shocked that it's not yoga that's inaccessible. It's the teacher that sometimes that makes it so, because of our lack of teaching, and we put the blame on somebody else. And that's what's wrong with it. And that's why I've gone and I've done the Diane Bondi training, the Jivana Heyman training, so that anyone that comes into my class, I can offer them an option. And they won't feel, you know, I won't say, oh, go into child's pose or lie in Savasana. You know, I will give them a version of the posture that they can do for their body that day.
You're so right about showing the postures, like just sitting cross-legged, or not just sitting cross-legged, but sitting cross-legged or lying on the floor in Shavasana, because we have a culture where it's always the doing and the activity that's prioritized. And if we're not showing rest or listening to your body and doing what you need, how is that ever normalized? Or
even breathing, you know, but it's that, I think it's that mindset. We have to be on the hustle, you know. It's always about the doing, but not about the resting, you know, not about the breath, you know, in between. And that's what people come and the students are able to do those postures eventually, but it's a journey for them.
What would you say to someone with the yoga practice where they're just trying to get somewhere, like they're trying to do a headstand or they're trying to progress in some way? How do you suggest to be with where they're at now and be present?
I say, you know, every time you come on your mat, it's a completely different experience. That's what I say to them. So one day in tree pose, you know, your tree will be solid. The next time you come, you know, you're wobbling all over the place. You're losing the balance. And that's real life. You know, you're not a robot that can come every day and knock out the yoga pose. And I also say yoga's a journey. Do the best you can do the body you have on your mat today. That's what I ask. And then at some point, you know, once they trust the body, students now are starting to headstand. I incorporate the yoga wheel, so I allow props and show them where to get into it. And that's how they will do it. And students will tell you, they come to my class thinking, oh, I'm going to sit around and they say, Donna has a way of making you do things that you never thought you could do. And I say it to you all the time. When I was like, I did a workshop last week, and even she was, I think she's a yoga student, but she came for the first time, and it was a yoga wheel workshop, and she did full splits for the first time. And I said, really? She went, yeah. She's not trusted her body. By the instruction I gave and using the wheel, she got into full splits both sides. But she already had it. But for some reason, I don't know what class she go to, didn't. It's the same with anyone that comes. When they come to that first class, I say, always do what you want to do. You can learn the mat. And invariably they don't, because they'll sit down and they'll watch, and we learn, and we take it nice and slowly. And they still don't trust themselves. And so what I normally do sometimes, I'll take a video clip of them, and I say, I'll speed it up. And then when they see themselves in that video clip, they're like amazed that they're not in their head anymore. They trust their body, and they're doing they start to know the sequence or the postures, and they love it. And then you have them then, and they'll start, okay, let's start doing headstand. Or what I'll do is I'll show them the posture, and I say, yoga never ends. So I'll show them like option 1, and I say, next week I'll joke and say option 2 will be like you're on a headstand, and I'll joke. But I start to get them in it. So I'll give them the strength, explain it's not the weight on the head, it's in the shoulders. Use the will to help you. And they start to trust themselves. And then suddenly they're kicking up, and it's like, be careful. They've found that fun, and they're doing more than they thought, and then they'll hold the posture. I had a student once, and she did headstand a few times using the yoga wheel. And we did a class, and she couldn't get it that week. And I said, it's fine. It's fine. Next week we'll get it. She sent me a video at 11 o'clock that night in headstand. She was determined to get it. That's the journey. So they love it. And that's the thing. They allow them to enjoy it, to be playful with it. When it becomes about stress, if they're not breathing, I say, guys, you should be in a boot camp class. In the wrong class. If the breath is not at the forefront of your practice, it's not yoga.
You mentioned about writing your book. Yeah. How did that come about?
A friend of mine wrote a book. And she actually credited me in those. I didn't know that until the book came out. She sent me a copy of it. And then I think the publisher said, do you know anyone else that might be worthy of got a book in them type thing? And she mentioned me. And I thought, yeah, right. So and then I think there was a yoga event happening, and she was going to be there, the publisher. And then so I met her, and I said, oh yeah, I think I could tell you something about body positivity, and told her what my outline was. And she said, yeah, I think that could work as a book. And then she said, okay, I'll email you later that week. And I never got the email. And my friend said, you hear? I said, no. I said, she ain't going to email. And I got the email a day later. I thought, gosh. So then I did send them the outline of what the book could be. And yeah, and then I signed the contract. It was like, okay. So yeah, so the books, yeah, so that's how I got the contract. So, and it seemed, and I think sometimes imposter syndrome comes through. It's like, it was too easy. People are trying to get a book and pursuing a publisher. But, and that's why I believe it was meant to be. That's why I very much go with the flow, like the yoga career. I didn't plan that, but it's happened.
Sounds like you've been honing your message for a long time, though.
Yeah, my friend said the same thing, that I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that because, in the beginning, you need to niche into niche. And I didn't do that deliberately, but it happened, if that made sense. And then I've been doing the body positive stuff for a long, long time, I suppose. So, yeah, so the message was always coming there. So, yeah, so. And then now that's why I suppose with what I was doing with the inclusivity, then it made a natural transition into the diversity and inclusion stuff. So so I've been doing this since 2015. 2015, the body positive stuff. Yeah, so I suppose it has been there for a while.
And what are you hoping that your book will do for other people?
So I suppose it will help teachers, because I think more and more teachers now want to make their classes inclusive. So it will, the steps I've learned and what I've learned along the way will help them to do so as well. And I suppose to give them practical hints and tips on how to do it, and to I suppose realize what they're doing as teachers, because sometimes we don't realize how we are in classes, how the language we use, because we go in there, like with me, you go to a course, but there's certain things you're not taught. Language is not something that we're taught how important it is, but by doing the course that I've done subsequently, they've impressed that on me. So even like I keep using the word guys as well, and guys are meant to be a very neutral term, but it no longer is. So I need to, but at least I'm aware of it, and I'll stop myself from saying, but I'm being aware of potentially what I'm saying, because language is important. Words are important. You can inspire, you can devastate, you can hurt, you can heal. And in the yoga space, that's key. We need to really be, because some will come to a class, they won't come back because something said. We need to be aware. We need to be aware how we treat people that may not look like us. Do we have stereotypes? And do we utilize those stereotypes in class with that person? That can be causing trauma. So that's what the book's going to hopefully let make people be aware of those things and give the you know, and how to adapt the postures as well, because there's certain postures that, you know, certain bodies may find difficult. We say child's pose is the resting pose, but not for everybody. I used to think that, but it's not. By doing the course of it, oh my God, it's not. So able then to change that mindset. Sometimes, you know, it lets us think about what we're doing and why. And so sometimes we say things without even knowing it, but we're taught it. So we assume, or we go to a class and we hear a teacher say something, the next thing you know, we're saying it without even realizing what it's about. So it makes us think about, be mindful, why are we saying something, why are we teaching something? So that's what the book will hopefully allow teachers to do. And I was supposed to find things easier than I did, because I didn't really have many people in the UK that were able to help me. And the book will hopefully allow there to be more inclusion, more accessibility, because more teachers will have that knowledge that they can go out and utilize.
I don't know about you, but I'm seeing things that are changing online seem to be reflected with advertising campaigns and things, that it's almost a surprise sometimes to see something that would be so normal in everyday life, but just to see it like in a fashion campaign or in an advert. So there's change filtering in many different directions, isn't there?
Yeah, and there is, but we need to be careful, because sometimes, you know, like you might have a clothing line and someone say, oh, it's a plus size clothing line, and they go up to size 2X, and it's like, well, you're not that inclusive. So sometimes you need to look at the brand, and there are some truly inclusive brands. There's one that I used to be an ambassador for, and they had the whole I think they went up to 4XL, even more. And now what they've done, they've actually said they're not going to cater for the lower end sizes, focus on and I can understand that, because there's so many brands out there for everyone else. So it makes sense that they can focus on and deliver good quality clothing for the individuals that can't access clothes like we can every day. You know, that's purchasing something that we take for granted. They have to, you know, shop in a way that's specialist for them, you know, because we take so many things for granted.
And talking about plus size kind of access, there's often this fat shaming mentality by health professionals and teachers of, if somebody's overweight, then they're not healthy, or that they're you know, how do you sensitively deal with those conversations? Because I've heard naturopaths, nutritionists, doctors, lots of different professions talk about it with this professional hat on, as if almost like it's so patronizing in that manner, that it's almost like they're holding like this is fact, when they don't know that person, or they don't know their situation.
But you know, you can't tell someone's health status by looking at them. You know, someone can look at me and think I'm healthy, but I could be smoking 60 cigarettes a day and necking vodka. But because of my shape, it's assumed that I'm healthy. And then conversely, you've got someone that's curvy, and they'll have one chip in their hand, and they're fat shamed because they're going to eat that one chip. But you can't. You know, a lot of the health professionals are using the BMI, and the BMI is an outdated way to measure someone's body mass. Yeah, the body mass index. You can't, because you can have someone. I think even Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he's muscular, he's being termed the O word. I tend not to try and say that as much, but it's wrong. And everyone's body shape is different. And there's something called Health at Every Size, the framework, and it can debunk a lot of these things. It's like, her name was Linda Bacon, but I think she calls herself now Lindo Bacon. We need to read that, because you can't tell someone's health status by their size. And I look at people. Do you know? Have you heard of Lizzo, the dance?
Yeah, she's awesome.
Lizzo is on the stage. I don't know how many sets she's doing. I could not do what Lizzo does on stage, and yet I'm meant to be the one that's meant to be helping. She's not. You know, you can't tell. And I know a lot of friends I have that are curvy, and they don't have the issues that are associated with what people say you have. There might be some other, but you have slim individuals that have those conditions too. Because someone's curvy, it's almost by default that they're unhealthy in that respect. So this argument, you know, I've been accused of being a body positive influencer, so I'm going to mandate this, but I can't tell someone's health by their size, and it's not my business anyway, you know. And that's why some individuals won't come to yoga, because of that very reason. And, you know, diet culture doesn't work. It's a $60 billion industry. And if it worked, why is it increasing every single year? I have to ask myself. And, you know, it's causing mental health issues because people are on yo-yo diets and this pursuit of thinness is not healthy. And people sometimes lose the weight and they're not happy. It's not happy. It's like, again, and you know, diet culture is steeped in racism as well, because it's idolizing one body type over the other, and it goes back to way back when I can't see, but again, trying to cultivate this one body type, you know, so it's not the black body that's, you know, it's demonized in that respect, but there's so much material like that that's told you about, but it goes back to white supremacy from what I can gather with the whole diet looking a certain shape or size, and there's always been curvy bodies. If you go on my page, they show artifacts of curvy bodies, you know, and Marilyn Monroe, you know, look back when she was around, that was the shape that everyone aspired to be. But coming through, you've got the heroin chic and this pursuit of thinness, and it's now coming very much into yoga now, very much so, you know, in terms of, is it fasting, clean eating? It's creeping very much into the yoga domain as well, and I don't think it's right. So for anyone like that, I'd say, you know, to have that conversation, look into Health at Every Size framework and see what it's about, I'd say. Because, you know, as yoga teachers, we're not nutritionists either, but we need to, you know, allow people to come to yoga for whatever it is they want. You know, sometimes people come for weight loss, but they get so much more. And sometimes when you take the weight off your mind, the weight that someone's meant to lose, if they're meant to be, comes off naturally. But, you know, that being so caught up with it, and we need to look at why, you know, is perpetuating the imagery that, you know, the fashion industry is permeated in a lot of industries, that this is, you know, someone tall, I don't want to bash up that body type, tall, slim, you know, is the ideal body type. But you know, all bodies should be normalized, ideally.
And you mentioned earlier that when you got into yoga, it was how it made you feel that was most of a draw. It's an interesting thing that the more that there's representation of all types of people, the more we all feel included. But how do people start to tune into how they feel? Because people aren't always that aware, especially if they're trying too much or pushing too hard.
But that's when they need to slow down. You know, because like you can see, especially in Bikram, you know, you said you've done it yourself with your husband. You know, you can see. I say you're in it's the 8 o'clock class, and they're ahead of me in the next posture. I say you're in the 12 o'clock class, and I start to bring them back, and I start to, you know, tell them about the mind-body connection, to feel the sensation in their body, and let them know the body's giving them a lot of messages, but we don't invariably tune into them. And once they start to slow down, and we do body scans, then the connection with the body starts. You know, some students in Savasana, they won't have Savasana because it's the hardest posture for them, because they can't remain still. They don't want to be still with their thoughts. But once they go beyond that and start to connect the mind with the body, that's when they start to interpret the sensations. And I give them examples of what those sensations are, you know, and that's how my students start to tune in and slow them down. At the start of the class, I don't get them to do asana straight away. Savasana, so they slow down, start to connect the mind to the body, start to connect to the breath, start to slow down. And some students come to my class, and, you know, when they're doing the roll up, they're so fast. And I said, there's no prize for yoga coming first. You know, slow down. You know, try and be the slowest person in the room, bringing it back to them. And I say, ask yourself how you're feeling today, because we always ask other people, but we very rarely ask ourselves, what sensation are you feeling? You know, that's what I try and do. And then the cultivation of the connection will start. Same with me. I was the same. How can I connect my mind with my body? But after time, meditation, and my yoga practice has allowed me to do so.
I like that idea about being the slowest person in the room, because that's so kind of counterintuitive. Usually there's that thing of being the race, or, you know, the fastest, the first to finish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I very much say. And then you see them, and they actually then, after a few weeks, sometimes they're too slow, and it's like, no, fine, that's fine with me, because they really slow down, really embrace it, and they get it. Because, you know, it's like invariably sometimes people aren't allowed to be in everyday life. They're in the future. And I say, be in the moment, be mindful. That's where you'll hear what's going on with your body. Like I say sometimes, like, you know, like I describe the mind as though there's a band in our brain, and you always hear the drums, not the loudest noise, but every once in a while, once you cultivate the stillness, you'll hear the violin and the piccolo. And the more you hear the stillness is great, you'll hear that innate wisdom. You connect to who you are. And that's when you start to the journey, and that's what happens with them. So I really, so it's not for me. Microsoft aren't all about the asanas, but it's given them sort of tools they can take into everyday life as well. Be aware of the breath. If you're breathing from your chest, you're invariably stressed. Or you see when they, the yoga faces when they're not breathing, I make them be aware of that. Or they start to mouth breathe, make them be aware of that. Close the mouth, and then they start to come back. You bring them back, let them tune to the body. So what I see, I tell them, and hopefully they'll start to train, and they'll start to move from the external sensations to the internal, feel the body from the inside out, allow them to cultivate that. And even like, wriggling the toes. So we do, even when they're standing, we do that body check so they can connect with hopefully every part of the body, begin to feel it in ways they never did before.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. There's such depth in the work that you're doing, and it's so important.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please send me a comment on Twitter or Instagram @AvniTouch. Subscribe to Speak from the Body on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go to avni-touch.com/podcast to get the show notes. And finally, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.